Yeah, so when I watched the Marvel movie, the Avenger one, there was this guy like sitting a couple of seats over, and he was very excited, I guess. He clapped a lot, really loudly,
Just him.
when people showed up. Yeah, just him. Like it was, he may have been a little bit drunk too. It was one of those theaters where you can actually order food and stuff, and I noticed he ordered like a large bottle of something.
Right.
But it's like, I don't know, someone shows up on the screen and he goes like, yeah, like this. And I was like, what the fuck, dude? Like, I don't, I hate it when people like make noises in movies. It just takes me out of the, immersion or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, he did that a lot. And then like, yeah, at the end too, and the credits and stuff, he was like, "Oh my god, it's this and that, and yeah." And, oh, it was weird.
Was he?
I guess he is a very excited Marvel fan.
Yeah, but is that the like the? Did you go early on, so it's a pretty packed theater? Or
Yeah, I went last Saturday, so it was still like everything was pretty much sold out after like a few minutes too. After I bought the tickets,
right. I just wondered how
It's
normal that is. Like in Canada, like American audiences are kind of stereotypically loud and do a lot of clapping and cheering, but British audiences are quite reserved and don't do so much of that. And I don't know what it's like in Canadian theaters. What's the norm?
usually it's pretty calm, I would say.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, people are usually pretty respectful of this kind of stuff. Yeah, that was just like a very big exception. I haven't had one of those guys in a long time.
I have to be honest. A couple of friends that I've gone to the pictures with, and they insist on doing the things that I really don't like when other people do. Like they're making jokes and want to comment as things are happening, and
Yeah, I hate that.
it really makes it a cringeworthy experience for me because I'm like, I don't want to be horrible, but I just want to say, just shut up and watch the movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the same. When I watched Black Panther, there was like this couple next to me, and I don't know if they like maybe just snuck into into the movie like afterwards or something, or if they just weren't interested or something. But like midway through, the girl started to like pull out her phone and talk to someone on her phone in like a whisper
Jeez.
voice, like whispering. And yeah, I just made like a grumpy sound and looked at her, and then they both left.
Did they leave because
But I
of your
was
grumpy sound?
Yeah, I was like, I expressed my annoyance with her in a
Nice.
somewhat subtle way, but I guess not so subtle.
That,
And then they stood up and just left and never came back. So I don't know. Like that was super weird.
that is a super effective sort of grumpy noise. Can you reproduce it for the podcast?
I don't remember what I did. Maybe it was a sigh or something. I just looked at her and go like, something. I don't know.
You shake your fist.
She's like, shut up. Because I was thinking if I go to her and be like, can you be quiet or something, then I'm the audible person in the theater and people will tell me to shut up.
That's right.
So I just try to make a grumbling sound or something. I don't understand people like this. Like, and it wasn't like there's like different type of seats you can buy, right? Like just the normal ones, and then they have this thing called D-Box, which is like they're like really big seats and they move and stuff, depending on like what happens currently on the screen.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, and they're a little bit more expensive, and so they had them too. So I don't know. I bet you they just like watched the movie and then afterwards snuck into that and saw if there's free seats or something.
Yeah,
Just sit down.
I there's a lot of debate at the minute, like about the decline of movies beyond like big blockbuster movies and whether it can survive as an industry when you've got things like Netflix and streaming that makes it so much easier to watch things. And I have to say, a lot of the time, that kind of thing is the reason that it's a bit of an ordeal going to see a movie. It's like,
Yeah.
if I could just go and not have to sit. Like, I went the other day to see, what was it, The Last Jedi? And I deliberately went I had the afternoon off, so I went in the middle of the afternoon when it's like dead. There's like five other people. And I don't know whether it was, I'm sure it was the woman who assigned the seats, because you just go in and get your ticket. I've not pre-booked a ticket, but she decides where you're going to be sitting. And
Oh,
it's
I see.
pretty much like, I don't know, a 200-seat theatre, but there's 5 of you in there. But of course, human nature is such that it's like parking with a car. You know, you have an empty car park, you park in a space, and when you come back out of the shop, the only other car in the car park has parked right next to you for some reason.
I don't get that at all.
I don't know
It's like,
why human beings need to cluster together, but the woman on who assigned the seats was putting it us all together. So, like, I'm in a virtually empty theatre. Brilliant. I can stretch out, and then a guy comes and sits right behind me. And that's like, in a packed theatre, that's fine. There's people all around you. But it's really weird if you're in a virtually empty theatre and
weird.
It's just you and one guy behind you. So I thought, I don't care how it looks. I'm moving. I'm going to go somewhere else.
Yeah, for sure.
No, I don't.
That's super weird.
That's really strange. It's not the guy's fault.
But yeah, then in here in Canada, it was super weird. Like, usually if you don't have any like special seats or something, you just get a ticket for the movie, but they don't have a seat assigned. So it's just like whoever shows up earliest gets to pick where to sit.
Yeah.
And you just pick whatever is free. And I hate that so much, because I don't want to like show up 40 minutes before the movie starts just so I can get a good seat, right? I just want to like pick a number and then have that seat.
It's not really, I'm afraid to say, it's not really like an occasion that I look forward to anymore. I feel like in many ways I'm kind of going, because if I don't go, it's going to get spoiled for me. So I have to go and see it before someone can spoil it. So I go for that reason. But if there were the option to just like pay the equivalent ticket price and watch it online, I would do that.
Online. That's something, man, I've been dreaming of this for so long. I just want it. Like, just let me buy the movie at the same time it comes out in the theater, and I watch it on my own at home.
Yeah, and I can see, like, the people who are really into movies and the whole culture surrounding movies and the history of movies don't want that to happen, because there's a unique viewing experience and movies are different in a theater. I can see all the arguments for it, and I kind of sympathize because I studied movies at college, and so I respect it as a medium. I think it's a really important art form of the 20th century, and I don't want it to go away, but I'm not sure making it available via streaming is going to lead to that. I just think it's a change in the way people view things, and that's naturally going to happen.
It's kind of like an outdated media almost, and I don't know. I don't feel like it would really go away. Like, you can still go to the theaters and still sit at the big screen. It's still a different experience. Like, for example, when the new Blade Runner came out, I kind of decided not to go at first because, again, I don't like being among other people. I'm so antisocial. But and so I decided not to watch it and just wait for it to come out on Blu-ray and then just watch it at home. But after I saw it, I was like, man, I wish I went to the theater, because just having it on this like giant screen with this really good audio system would have been so amazing, because there's so much good music and sounds and visual effects in this movie that it's hard to recreate that at home, right? So I think there's a bunch of movies that I would decide to be like, yeah, I would go still to the theater and watch it, but for like all the other movies, I'd gladly pay like just, some fee online and then watch it, and then like Netflix or something and watch it right away too.
But I think they really need to up their game. They need to up the quality of like the offerings that are exclusive to Netflix.
Yeah, and I think that comes with, like if people use it more and they make more money with this, then they also have a bigger budget for that kind of stuff. But I don't know, I find like already like the stuff on Netflix is getting quite high in quality. Like there's some really good stuff on there.
It tends to be series that I'm impressed with. I haven't watched many movies that have really blown me away on Netflix, but I might have. Can you think of any that you really were into?
Well, the Cloverfield I liked a lot. Like,
did you?
Yeah. Right. Did you watch that one?
No, I just heard it was really shit, so I haven't watched it.
I think I mentioned that before, maybe. I can't remember, but like one of my favorite movies has like 7% on Rotten Tomatoes, so maybe I'm not the best judge.
Which
Bright.
movie is that?
Oh, Ultraviolet.
Oh, the vampire one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Bright is a really good one on Netflix with Will Smith.
Well, that's kind of relevant to the game I'm going to be talking about today, because I thought Bright was very much like, have you heard of the Shadowrun universe, which is a role-playing game?
It's a game I want to play again. It's a tactical turn-based game. My nemesis genre of games, I guess.
Yeah.
I want to like it. I can't get into it. I don't know why. But Shadowrun, especially because it's like cyberpunky, and I love cyberpunk, is something I always want to get into. I tried like 2 of those games of the newer, like Shadowrun Returns, and I think I tried the Hong Kong, I think it is.
I think they were, and those are by Harebrained Schemes. Is it Harebrained Schemes?
If you say so.
Schemes, yeah, it is, that made Shadowrun.
Nice transition though, from Bright to Shadowrun.
Yeah, well, I thought Bright was like.
Oh, it's totally Shadowrun. Yeah.
They wanted to do Shadowrun,
for
but
sure,
they couldn't
for sure, yeah.
get the license to do Shadowrun. But Harebrained Schemes also made the game that I was going to talk about today, which is Battletech.
Battletech. Everyone's playing it.
So shall I just talk a bit about that?
Tell me.
I played Shadowrun. I think I've tried both of those 2 that you mentioned. And I really appreciated Harebrained Schemes trying to do that genre, because it's not a very popular genre, and a lot of stuff is coming through indie studios, crowdfunding, getting genres of games like that probably wouldn't be tackled by major studios these days back into people's hands. And it's really good that there are studios like Harebrained Schemes. But in the case of Shadowrun, I guess you call it, there's this word CRPG for these old school games like Shadowrun, Path of Exile, that kind of hark back to earlier games like Baldur's Gate and earlier kind of computer RPGs on the PC primarily, where you have a party of characters, and it's it can be very dialogue heavy and a little bit dense and quite slow in terms of the gameplay. So that's why it's not particularly, it's kind of fallen out of favour. But games like Shadowrun that Harebrained Schemes produce kind of hark back to that style of game from earlier.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see its return. However, within that genre, there's always like subgenres, aren't there? There are some that are more talky and more story-based, some that are more strategy-based and foreground the battles. And I felt that Shadowrun was very, very talky. I had to get through a lot of story before I got to the stuff that I actually, honestly, was playing the game for, which is the characters, growing the characters, going up levels and so on, and kitting them out and getting new skills, and just the tactical combat. So a lot of more and more dialogue, reading. And it's one of my pet peeves in games. I don't play games to read walls of dialogue.
Do you read like outside of like games though? Do you read a lot of books and stuff, or do you just...
Yeah, I just...
Because you do also writing and stuff, so... Right.
It's not that I don't like reading. I don't play games to read.
When you play games, you don't want to read. It's just like a different...
I want to play... I want to play a game. I want to be interacting. I don't want to be sitting staring at a screen reading. And it's a slightly wankerish thing to say, but some of the stories and dialogue in games is not the greatest. And if you want great dialogue and stories, there are better ways to get it.
For sure.
But games can do one thing that a book and a movie can't, which is give you interactive things to do that you actually have a hand on. So that's why I play games. It's not, and when I say I don't want to read, it's not that I don't want to read in general. I just don't want to spend a lot of time when I've sat down to play a game reading.
Yeah.
So Shadowrun was not, it's a great game, but it's not quite there for me. But Battletech is quite different and much more my type of thing in that there's a lot less waffle and dialogue and reading in between the battles. It really foregrounds the tactical battles. You are there to have a team. Basically, it's turn-based combat set in a universe in the far future where there are these huge battle mechs that you pilot, and wars are fought that way. And it's a really long-running sort of mythos that's been around for a good few years. It used to be, I think it was a tabletop game and an RPG system, and there's loads of fiction and the universe surrounding it.
Yeah.
But the basic thing is you're a mech warrior, one of these guys who pilots the mechs, and your lance of mechs in the game, you have 4 of them, and you have 4 different pilots and a range of different mechs that you can take into combat, and you face off against other mechs, and you have to prevail. You have to destroy them generally before they destroy you. Right. And within that basic framework, there's all the stuff you would expect from kind of a tactical turn-based game. You can really get into tailoring each of your characters. So the mechs themselves have a range of weapons you can use. You can take different levels of armor into a battle. You can take, not only can you customize the mechs, you can customize your mech warriors who pilot them, so you can mix and match. And it's really good for kind of, I mentioned before that I like, one of the things that I like the best about this type of game is tailoring the characters, coming up with a team that you connect with, and a loadout for the gameplay that is kind of, this is the optimal way to play that suits me the best. And you can really get into it and feel like this is my strategy and my team. So it does that. And in between that, each of the battles, you kind of go back to your ship, and there's a whole other metagame. Have you played XCOM very much?
A little bit, yeah, not much.
It's very similar in terms of between each tactical battle, you go back to your base and you manage the base. You have to manage the flow of money coming in, what you're going to spend it on, how you're going to make more money by taking contracts, and there's kind of a risk reward thing going on. And because you're basically a mercenary unit that has to survive financially, you're kind of a business in the business of being mercenaries. So you have to decide which contracts to take, whether the risk is worth it. If you take loads of damage, the potential payout, is it going to be worth it in the end? Because you're going to have to repair all your mechs, and you have to stay afloat, basically. And the game ends in one of 2 ways. Either you all get wiped out in one of the tactical battles, or you go bankrupt. Your company goes into bankruptcy, which is a whole thing that I had not expected. And I don't know how much this is like the Battletech format, if you're familiar with role-playing and the actual Battletech system, whether that is what happens in that. But that's a really interesting twist on the whole management of your team. And
has it happened to you
so
yet?
It's good. Really, really close.
Yeah.
Really close. But I found that you can kind of dig yourself out of it. But if you have 1 or 2 really disastrous battles in a row that you just scrape through, it's very quickly you can go back to being close to bankruptcy.
Right.
So it keeps you on your toes, and it's challenging. I'm finding it really challenging. Not quite on the level of something like, I compare it to XCOM because I think that remake of XCOM has had a huge impact. The Firaxis remake of XCOM was updating a very old-fashioned turn-based system where you have a number of points per turn that you allocate to take certain actions, and it really distilled it down to the essence. So you can move and shoot, or you can shoot and move. You can do 2 things each turn. And MechWarrior is very similar. They've taken that system. And I was mentioning that because I think the similarities, for a different reason, but I've lost my train of thought now. Yeah, but I think the influence of XCOM is definitely there.
Yeah, like when I saw it, I like thought it was actually made by the XCOM developers at first because it just looks so similar with the whole, yeah, your base in between, and then just some of the UI stuff and like the pathfinding and so on. I guess it just seems very similar.
It's very good. Oh, that's why I was comparing it. It was the challenge, just like
Oh, right,
not quite.
difficulty.
Yeah, the difficulty of it. There's a definite. I don't know whether you call this. I always am a little bit suspicious when, someone who is just your Joe Smo gamer talks like they really know what they're talking about this sort of stuff. But to me, it felt like there's maybe something a little bit wrong here in terms of my knowledge as a player. You don't want to be handheld, but you want to feel like you're being gradually ramped up in terms of challenge. And I felt like it went from ridiculously easy to suddenly very challenging very quick.
Yeah.
There was a difficulty spike that was quite a shock because I was feeling like, wow, this is a cakewalk. And then suddenly you're into a battle where your entire team that you thought was invincible has been wiped off the map in like 3 turns. Right. And I'm like, shit, okay. I didn't see that coming. And also there's a couple of other things like in terms of criticism, like I've played a little bit of the Mech Warrior games from years and years ago where you're just a guy, first person inside the mech stomping around the battlefield. So I'm kind of familiar with the idea of kitting out your mechs. They all have different hard points that you can put missiles and lasers and guns on. And each one is slightly different, and you have to manage things like heat. When you fire all your weapons, you can overheat. So I was kind of familiar with all that stuff, but I think if you weren't, it would be really like, what the hell is going on here? It doesn't really explain a lot of that stuff to you very well. There is a tutorial, but it's more kind of like, it's so basic, but some of the stuff that you need to know, it doesn't really tell you.
I wonder why.
So maybe there's a challenge there for people jumping into a Battletech game for the first time, but I'm really enjoying it, and I do what I always do with these games like XCOM. I go crazy and play it for like days. Just nothing else. I just play it until I'm sick of it, and then I get really angry with it and I stop.
Are you sick of it yet?
Yes, I was sick of it a few days ago. I was like, screw this game, screw it. And I took it off Steam because I got so angry. And then a few days passed, and then I was like, you know what? That was probably a bit of an overreaction. And I jumped back in and picked up my save game. And I was like, yeah, this is fine. I was just getting angry. Because there are some situations where you really feel like it's RNG again. It always comes down to RNG. You can strategize all you like, but you're going to miss those crucial shots. And in a game like Battletech, where it's a really fine line, you're only scraping through battles sometimes, so the RNG really matters. I think RNG is more palatable when there's more room for it in the game design. But if it's a really challenging game like Battletech or XCOM on the higher difficulties, RNG just is not a force for good, it's a force for annoyance. So that always just, and it's my fault because I play too much in one go.
Well, maybe it's just bad design. I don't know. I remember there was one of these like type of games where you also had like the RNG was like hit chance and stuff, but if you would miss, it still hit, but like it would just do like a tiny bit of amount of damage.
Yeah, small amount of damage. Something like that where it's not all or nothing. Would be kind of nice. But it's weird that it seems very similar to Into the Breach in certain thematically for sure, but completely different choices in terms of how to approach that kind of thing.
Right. Well, yeah, and in Into the Breach, they took out the RNG pretty much, so they have to design it in a different way, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, Battletech on the surface, graphically, it's more sophisticated than Into the Breach, and you could say
Yeah,
deeper than Into the Breach,
for sure.
but probably not as innovative. Into the Breach did some really interesting things with the theme of the game. You kind of somehow, I can't remember how they explained this, but you kind of know what's going to happen.
Yeah, you're like a time traveler. You just keep going back in time.
Yeah. And it's basically a story that's there to explain design decisions that are innovative and different. And Battletech is deep and engaging and interesting. I'm not sure if it's that revolutionary, and probably, if there were a lot of competition for it, I don't know how well it would fare. I think it's faring very well because what other option do you have if you want to play a turn-based mech combat game? You don't have many other options. So, but it's definitely a really good game and fulfills that kind of slightly adolescent male fantasy of, well, futuristic robots stomping around the battlefield shooting each other is just cool, isn't it? So I'll have that.
Yeah.
So that is what I have been playing. One of the things I've been playing.
One of the things you played a lot, huh?
Yeah.
What was I going to say? I was just looking at my Steam friend list to see how many hours you played. 41 hours.
Oh, how much?
41.1 hours have you played.
41 hours. Oh, that doesn't seem like very much.
Well, from all the people that have played it on my list, you played it the second most.
Oh, okay.
There's only one guy who's still playing it right now for 76 hours.
I think I don't feel like I'm very far into the story yet, so I think there's probably quite a lot more to go.
Did you have to restart at any point yet, or?
No, I thought after my hissy fit uninstalling it, I might have to, but my save games were still there, so
yeah, the cloud sync.
I pick it up again. But I do that with XCOM. I've done that so many times with XCOM. I just get frustrated with it, and the only way I can stop myself playing is to uninstall it because there's a little bit of I would say addictive personality because it's not it's not an issue,
That's what addicted people would say, huh? It's not a problem. I have it under control.
It's not a problem, Well, it's not a problem because I can sense when it's happening, so I kind of go cold turkey and right, I need a break, and psychologically the way I do that is to uninstall it.
So you don't even get tempted to start it up.
Yeah, there are they're always turn-based games for me that do this. XCOM does it. The Civilization games do it to me, and something like BattleTech will get its claws into me, and I have to be firm with myself. Stop playing this game now. You need to get some work done.
That's crazy. Well, yeah, Civ has that effect on a lot of people. Sounds like it's always that one more turn mentality. Are there any games like Battletech or XCOM though that don't, or let's say popular games like them that don't have the whole RNG stuff? Do you think?
With turn-based stuff, Into the Breach is noteworthy in that it doesn't do that. I'm trying to think of others, recent ones that don't have RNG.
Because it seems like every time they make these type of games, it's just a key element that they implement. I'm just curious if people ever try to not do that and make it interesting, and how people would react to it if they're like, no, I want my frustrating RNG back, or this might work better this way.
Well, I always go back to, we've mentioned it before, I think, Final Fantasy Tactics. And
sure.
That game is very, very similar in terms of how it functions, but there's no RNG in that game. It only occurred to me, it didn't occur to me until fairly recently that, that's a game that's turn-based, it has everything in it, and I think of it as a tactically challenging game, but there's no RNG.
Interesting.
You know how much damage you're going to do.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll do more, sometimes you'll do less, but that will be dependent on the type of weapon you're using and the armor and class and facing of the way the enemy is facing and so on. But you always know that you're going to do a set amount of damage.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Because you can still be pretty tactical with that kind of stuff, right? Like, even if you don't have an RNG for like how much damage you do, you could just say, okay, depending on how close or far away you're to a person, you do more or less damage. So it still adds some sort of tactic to the game.
Yeah, I honestly don't know why RNG is so prevalent in these dice rolls underlying hits and misses, because I don't think it's necessary for challenge or necessary to make it hardcore or something.
Yeah.
I don't think it follows at all.
It's kind of weird. Like, I sometimes feel like it's just, people are used to the system and they somehow like the punishment a little bit and want it again. Because it's similar to, well, maybe it's similar, I'm not sure, but like it reminds me of, for example, Diablo 2 or something, how you have, this kind of Tetris mini game in your inventory, trying to fit items into specific positions because they have different sizes. Like an armor has covers, I don't know, 16 squares of your inventory, where a potion covers 1 or something. It almost seems like in like gaming terms nowadays, like a nuisance, like an annoying thing. But when people take this kind of stuff out, the fans of these type of genres, they hate it. They want their silly inventory where they have to puzzle together the inventory, the items somehow to make them fit.
Yeah.
Rather than just having like a list or every item is the same size or something.
It occurs to me that some of these things, not in terms of something like XCOM, but when you think of the designers of the original XCOM, what their background was in kind of gaming and RPGs and Dungeons and Dragons, which is all dice rolls, and you think about converting some of these systems into games, like Battletech was a role-playing game that was all dice-based. So it could be that it's just the game system that the video game is based on is RNG.
Yeah.
Involves dice rolls, and
it's just a key element of it that they want to keep it.
Yeah, and how else would you simulate kind of the random nature of when you're not aiming your gun? How can you simulate the idea that sometimes you miss? Because no one hits 100% of the time. Well, in a tactical game, I don't know how you would simulate that, other than saying, right, every fourth shot you will miss.
Yeah.
Well, then what's the point? What's the point of that? So it might be just that they want to simulate the randomness of a real battle.
But then there's like these really stupid moments too, where you're like just next to someone and you still miss. Like that kind of stuff just seems ridiculous.
Yeah.
So maybe the distance to a enemy just should favor more into the randomness, like at maybe you have like a ideal distance to an enemy where you're pretty much 100%, but then if you get super close, you would still be like 100% or whatever. But if you go further away, it just lowers it because it's too far away.
I think in RNG,
likely.
I think in RNG games, pretty much they're like the idea of 100% hit hardly ever crops up. I don't know if it's possible. I think it's possible in XCOM. Maybe it is point blank range, but it's always like 99% chance. So it's almost like the idea of.
I wonder why though. Like
the idea. So it feels like the developer saying, no, that's a sin. We either everything's RNG or everything's we know. We can't have 100% because that's going against our principles.
That's so weird. Yeah,
there's always a chance you're going to miss. But yeah, I think you mentioned to me like that thing in XCOM, and it is weird. Like, why are you missing point blank range, and why are you shooting with your gun at point blank range? You should be butting them in the head with the gun, not
Yeah.
shooting, pointing the nozzle down their throat. It's weird. But that's all kind of animation, isn't it? And how much...
Yeah. I mean, they could add stuff, but that would be a lot of work for probably cases that don't occur too often. But
just to mollify the arseholes on podcasts who complain about these kinds of things.
Yeah.
Is that really going to sell more copies of the game? Probably not.
Probably not. If anything, maybe you shouldn't be able to use certain weapons if you're too close,
Yeah. Certainly not sniper rifles.
Yeah. Or just bash them with your sniper rifle instead.
You just swing it like a sword, crack them over the head.
But maybe, you brought up that those games are usually based on like an RPG game or something, like a D&D or something. I wonder if that's just what it is too. Like I'm trying to think, because like even Shadowrun, XCOM, or wait, XCOM, is that based on like a pen and paper kind of game?
No, that was a video game, but the creators of it were definitely
inspired by...
It's like a graphical RPG system. You have points to allocate per turn. It's all dice rolls behind the scenes. So they obviously looked at that and thought, that's how we're going to do our thing. The original, the 1991, I think it was.
That was on Nintendo, right? Or was it on PC too?
I think it originally came out on... Goodness, I'm not even sure. It will have been something like the early PCs or Amiga, Atari ST maybe, or or microcomputers like the Commodore.
So the first one was let's see. First one was UFO Enemy Unknown, I think.
Yeah, I mean it was later. It's been ported to pretty much every system out there. I think it's considered to be one of the... I think it gained in stature as time's gone on, because there's nothing else quite like what they came up with for XCOM. The setting, the way they tackle it, and it's so unique as a kind of a... It's not... there are some classic platformers like Sonic and Crash Bandicoot that are held up as being great examples of the genre. But XCOM it's one of those kind of games that exists in its own little area. I know some games are kind of like certain aspects of it, but no game is quite like the whole package.
Yeah. It's almost like genre defining.
Yeah.
It came out 94 for MS-DOS and Amiga, and 95 for PlayStation.
Oh.
I see. Which one was I thinking of? I feel like there was one for Nintendo or something. Maybe I'm thinking about something else.
It was probably ported to Nintendo, wasn't it?
I'm looking at like the platforms, but none of these mention Nintendo platforms.
All right. Well, are you thinking of the game that they did before XCOM was called Laser Squad?
Laser Squad. Let's see.
Yeah, and that it was very kind of... It was what it sounds like, a squad of guys that you move around a map and shoot lasers. And it was all about positioning and moving, firing arcs and again turn-based. But I think that was the guys who went on to do XCOM.
Yeah, Mythic. That was it Mythos Games, whatever.
Yeah,
there was Amiga, Commodore 64, MS-DOS, Atari. Yeah. I'm probably thinking about a different game. XCOM Nintendo. Let's see.
Something XCOM like on Nintendo that you played.
Yeah. I don't know if it was SNES or NES, but... I have no idea. Oh, am I thinking about Shadowrun? I'm probably thinking about Shadowrun. Yeah.
The original Shadowrun on SNES.
I'm thinking about Shadowrun.
Oh, well.
There you go.
Yeah.
Mystery solved.
Well, I remember seeing that, and I never got around to playing it on the original SNES. It's one of those games that I just thought, oh, well, that looks really... I really want to play that. It's got all the elements that I want in a game, and I just never got around to it for some strange reason.
Probably pretty outdated by now if you try to play it now.
Oh, sure.
So,
do you ever feel like... Sorry, go on. I've talked too much. What were you going to say?
Oh, no, I was just going to ask, are you going to make videos of Battletech?
No, I've learnt my lesson. I'm sort of getting the sense of what's worth putting on my YouTube channel, and that no one's going to watch that.
Well, you never know. Maybe in the future, suddenly you get a burst of people who like Battletech, and then bam.
Yeah, I don't know how it happens, but there are certain channels that you're kind of just by virtue of whatever game you're recording and putting on YouTube that you're in competition with, and they're kind of just more established and have been doing it longer. So if someone searches for Battletech playthrough, your little dinky little channel is not going to crop up for them.
Yeah, that's just where like recommendations come into play. Sam, if someone watches their video, there's a chance that yours may show up on the side.
Yeah.
Or that it shows up for them on their like YouTube main page as like, hey, you like this game and this type of content? Why don't you watch this dude over here who has like similar titles and tags and all kinds of weird YouTube things that I don't understand yet.
You know, I honestly, one of the reasons that I kind of don't know what I'm bringing to the table with that sort of game. I don't know how to make it interesting in terms of doing a video of it.
I don't,
because you just it's so. How do you make it? How do you make it interesting for people?
Well, I guess it depends on like what you would find interesting, right? Like I don't think. I mean, I like some people I follow. They play all kinds of games. One guy is currently playing through the game too, and I like took a peek at it before at some of his videos, and it's just him playing game. But like people love it like this, you know. They want to see how he thinks, the kind of decision he makes, etc. But I guess it just comes down to like, if you personally, would you go look up someone play this game, and if so, what would you find interesting and entertaining, right?
Yeah, I think in that case, those types of games, when I search for playthroughs of those, it's something that I'm considering buying. And so you're just looking for someone who's not being fancy and not trying to be clever. They're just playing the game in a very relaxed way. You get a sense of the game, and then... But then I tend to stop watching. Like, I kind of know after episode 3 or 4...
if you want it or not.
Whether I want to play it or not. And if I don't want to play it, I don't really want to watch the videos either.
Interesting.
So,
that's
kind of...
Because I think some people may want to watch it to compare maybe how they did it, you know, versus the person they're watching.
Yeah, I've come across that a little bit on YouTube. Like, people say... oh, you did this. It's interesting to see you do this as opposed to I did that.
Yeah.
Now, I would kind of avoid watching, particularly with a new game, like somebody else's gameplay, because A, I don't want it spoiled, and also I don't want too many tips on things like strategy. I want to discover it.
Yeah, I think you would just go back to it after you've done some of it, right?
Yeah.
And then maybe check it out.
Yeah.
That's what I've been doing with some of the games I've been playing. Just like, if I made it past a certain point, I go to some people and see how they did it, or just hear their opinions on certain things until the point, you know, I'm at, so I don't get anything spoiled or anything.
Yeah. Yeah, but in terms of Battletech, I just thought, like, no, I tried it with XCOM, and there's other stuff that you could be recording that you know people are actually more interested in, so...
Yeah.
Do that instead and just play it for myself, kind of.
Yeah. Well, at least you can still play for yourself or on your own, and, you know, be okay with that. I'm struggling so much with that.
Do you still feel like I should be streaming this whenever you're or recording it?
Every single game I play, it's like I can't play this on my own. I need to share this with someone.
Yeah, there's
certain games I've had for like years that I haven't played yet because of that.
Oh, that's interesting. Now, sometimes I feel like I really don't want to share this with anyone. I want this for myself. This experience.
You know what? I do have that a little bit with certain games, like mostly point and click adventure games.
Yeah.
I don't want to live stream these at all because I hate getting tips or backseat gaming for these type of games. If I sit there for 2 hours struggling with a puzzle, then let me sit there for 2 hours and struggle with the puzzle. It's part of this type of game. I don't want someone going and be like, have you tried this? Have you tried that? Might be interesting for them, but like for me, it just kind of ruins the experience. So that would be something I wouldn't want to like stream or something.
Yeah, I'm starting to definitely get a feel for the kind of games that are good streaming games
Hmm.
and what isn't. And I do feel, I know everyone's different and people stream for different reasons, but I definitely feel like when I'm streaming, I should be trying to be at least a little bit entertaining,
Hmm.
and not just completely myself. I've got to be a little bit mindful of being entertaining and being engaging, and
Yeah.
whether that means the terrible thing of trying to be funny, which I try not to do, but a little bit more switched on than
For sure.
you would be if you weren't streaming and or recording. And yeah, certain games lend themselves better to that than
Hmm.
others.
Hmm.
Um,
For sure.
the one I'm most familiar with is Skyrim, and
Yeah.
I find that quite good because there are characters talking to you, so you can respond to the characters
Hmm.
and you can talk back to them. Whether it's a companion or an NPC, you can respond. Now, if you're fighting aliens in XCOM, no one's talking to you. No one's the game is not giving you kind of stuff you can.
It doesn't have like an interactive like
Hmm,
opportunity or something, right? Like people just watch and
yeah,
see what your decisions are gonna be, whereas in Skyrim people can react to it and of what just happened and like I don't know. Because it's more of a sandboxy game, I guess. You just have choices and can give their input for you to do certain things or
yeah, and I just think like it's always funny when an NPC talks to you because the sometimes the voice acting can be janky, or sometimes they'll say something that's just doesn't make
hmm.
sense. So you can make fun of that or respond in a silly way to it. Respond to silliness with silliness.
Yeah.
So just some games feel more comfortable to record with than others, and BattleTech and those kind of tactical games seem to be some of the hardest for me. Like,
Hmm.
I can't imagine streaming and having it be successful in terms of a video like what you do with Minecraft, because it's such a kind of a, I don't know, the world is kind of not giving me any feedback to respond to.
Yeah.
So I don't know how
Yeah,
you
it would just
approach
be your
that.
thought, right? Like your strategy, thinking out loud.
Yeah.
I had that. I don't know. I mean, everyone is different. Some people like this kind of stuff because I thought the same when the Anno 205 came out.
Yeah.
Anno is like one of my favorite series. And so on release day, I decided to stream it, and I was like, no one's gonna watch this. Me building like a city, especially on release day when there's like tons of other big streamers streaming this kind of stuff. But that was my most successful stream I've ever had. There were like 40 people or something watching the entire time,
Oh, cool.
and some chatting and stuff. But most of them were just lurking too, because it's not a type of game where you really have, as a viewer, there's not much you can react to. Like you're just like, okay, I'm watching, checking what you do, maybe learning from it. There's nothing I can say to help out with. Maybe like, oh, maybe you build this here or there or something, but that goes back into like backseat gaming that most people don't appreciate anyway, so probably shouldn't suggest these things anyway. But yeah, where like you said with Skyrim, if someone says something funny or I don't know, there's more to react to, I guess, for viewers.
I'm starting to like the idea of like doing that as one of the things you can offer to people,
Hmm.
like jumping in with a new game. And it did occur to me, it's not like something that I dismissed out of hand with Battletech. I thought, look, this is a new game that's coming out now. One of the things you can offer is show it to people.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, yeah, I'll take that on board. That is something I'm going to try and do more of, but not in this particular case. So for certain games like State of Decay 2 is coming out soon, and that'll be
Hmm.
one that I probably will try and do that because it suits me. It's the type of game I like to comment while I'm playing. I can find things to comment on, and it works for me. But also, it's a new game that people might be interested in seeing and just checking out to see if they want to buy it themselves.
Yeah.
So, but I think identifying the games that are the right fit for you. I didn't realize that before. I thought, right, I'm just going to do games on the internet. I didn't realize, well, different games lend themselves to different ways of doing things. I didn't really understand that.
Well, speaking of State of Decay 2, if you ever want to do multiplayer in that, I'd be up for that.
Oh, definitely,
so
yeah.
Fun.
Because that's I was looking at it today, and like as you do, well, okay, I know what it's going to be State of Decay, but what's different? And I couldn't see anything apart from hope it's multiplayer, and hopefully some of the bugs have gone because it was a very buggy game.
Yeah,
and
it looks nicer, I guess.
It looks like they've rethought. Did you play a lot of the original one?
Not a lot.
Okay.
It's a game I always tried out for, I don't know, an hour or so here and there, and then thought, hey, maybe I should record this one day, and then just never did.
They had a mechanic, I'm not sure if you remember it, where you would log out of the game and kind of this fake passage of time would happen while you weren't in the game. So you'd come back and certain things would be different.
Right, I do remember.
And I read a thing where the developers were saying, we've rethought that because generally speaking, it tended to lead to frustration rather than anything else, because there's an element of realism there, but people, I experienced in the game a few times, it's like I spent a load of time setting up my defenses around my base for the hordes coming in, and I've got fire traps ready to go off, and then you log out of the game and 24 hours later, everything's gone to shit because this fake real time is going on in the background, and that was frustrating for me.
Yeah, people have less time nowadays, People are busy. They can't always log in.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was well intentioned. They were trying to suggest that this is a living, breathing world, something like an MMO, or that's a persistent world. Yeah. But it didn't quite work. It was just.
I remember in Fable 2 they did something similar where you could rent out houses or something to make money, and it would take real life time for you to accumulate that kind of money. So I just rented out a bunch of houses, turned off the game, changed my clock on my console to several days later, and then logged in and just had a bunch of money right away, and just kept doing that.
That's one way to tackle it. So is there anything that, I know you've been playing God of War, but was there anything in particular you wanted to talk about? Game wise?
Just the game, I guess. I don't know. It's pretty much, well, I've been playing that. That's the only new game I've been playing, I guess. Besides that, I've only been playing Minecraft and still trying to get my way through Deus Ex Mankind Divided slowly. But
you're sticking with it.
Yeah. Takes me forever. I had a long pause with Deus Ex, but now I'm finally.
I think you're up to episode 40 or something.
48. I think was the latest or something.
Wow.
They're all half an hour at least. Some are longer. That's
dedication.
Well, I'm a very slow player, and I like to take my time with these type of games and just explore most every single corner.
That's fair enough.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to finish that. But yeah, God of War, I started. It's actually I try to stay away from looking up too much about the game at first. It's something I'm trying to do more often. Just don't watch trailers, don't read up too much about it. Because I always feel like I spoil it too much for myself by doing that.
Yeah.
And then I wasn't even considering getting it right away, because I was okay, I'm playing Deus Ex and this other and Minecraft and stuff, so maybe I should just focus on these. But then everyone I know is oh, I got God of War, I can't wait to play God of War. So I'm okay, fine, I'll get it too. So I picked it up. But I'm glad I did. I've been having a ton of fun. Still not super far into the game, maybe 5-ish hours or so. Apparently it's a 35 hours game maybe, from what I heard.
Are you a God of War fan? Did you play any of the others?
No, not really. I played one of them, but not finished it. Long time ago. I don't
Mm.
know if it was the first one or the second one. I can't remember, and I don't even remember where I played it, or because I don't own it. So I played it at a friend's place, or I had like one of those old PlayStation demo discs or something. I don't remember. I knew a little bit about it, like what type of game it is, and all the controversial stuff around it. Um, but yeah, I did. I kind of went in there as pretty much new to the genre. I mean, it's kind of like a reboot, sort of ish, but it still is plays like after all the God of War that came out before this one. Story wise, like the old ones deal with Greek mythology. You're like fighting the Greek gods over there, and spoiler alert, from what I heard, is at the end you just pretty much kill the world. It sounds like, or maybe just Greece or like whatever, wherever you are. You
Yeah.
pretty much kill everyone and everything. And so this one plays like how many years later, and it's Norse mythology, so like Nordic gods and stuff. And you have a son now who apparently has some sort of sickness, and right at the beginning of the game, your mom dies, or his mom, I should say, dies. You prepare like a pyre, like a almost like a Viking funeral, but you just burn her. You don't put her on a ship or anything, and you're supposed to bring her ashes to a mountain. That's all I've know, all of like done so far, pretty much like story wise.
Right.
I'm not sure what else is going on. There's still a lot of questions of like why is he there? Who was his wife? Why is his son always sick? Why do we have to get to the mountain? Lots of stuff. But gameplay wise, it's kind of sort of similar. I mean, the combat seems similar to the old games. You have a different weapon instead of having these dual blades on chains. You have an axe that can freeze things. It's very like Dark Soulsy, I guess, the combat, but like the old one seemed kind of like it too.
Yeah, I've heard
Yeah.
people say.
But other like outside of it, it seems pretty linear so far. I'm not sure if it's gonna open up much later on. At this point, it seems pretty linear still. But like I said, I'm still early into the game, considering that I again spend my time just exploring every single region of the world. It takes me forever to get through stuff. Like if I go by my like episode numbers, I guess I'm at the latest one I recorded was 11. And I'm at a point where other people would be in episode 3 or 4 or something. Like,
Yeah.
they get through it much quicker than I do. But yeah, no, I like it a lot so far. It's pretty challenging, even though I'm only playing on the second difficulty out of 4. I'm getting my butt kicked already. Story is super interesting so far. Voice acting is cool. Gameplay is fun. Kind of wish I had a PS4 Pro so I could play it in 60 frames per second and not 30 frames per second. But that's console life for you, I guess.
With God of War, and there have been a few, I think Red Dead Redemption 2 coming out.
Yeah.
The kind of lure of consoles is the kind of exclusives and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think it works because it's making me think, I really need to play some of these games.
Yes.
So yeah, but that's kind of weird that it's not at so on the basic PS4 it's at 30 frames per second. You need the Pro for 60.
Yeah, it's just like, graphics quite neat on that, and just the PS4 just can't handle it in 60 frames. That's been always an issue on the PS4 though. Like any of those consoles that came out, even the Xbox One. It's just usually on console you either get 1080p and 30 frames per second, or 720p, sometimes 900p and 60 frames per second. But in this one you don't really have a choice. On the PS4 Pro you can switch between like 1080p and 60 FPS, or 4K and 30 FPS, I believe. But
Right.
I don't have a 4K TV, so. And this is the type of game, like, like I said, the combat is very like Dark Souls like, where I kind of wish I had that 60 frames per second just to be a bit more fluent in those combat or in these fight scenes. But oh well, I'm not gonna pay like another $400-500 for a new PS4.
No, and think of all the things you do have. The great, you've got a top of the line console, and it's slightly, maybe the screen goes slightly slow, but who can't really
Yeah.
complain about that kind of thing
Yeah, I just get
too
like,
much.
yeah, I didn't actually honestly notice this until I watched other people play it, because all the fancy YouTubers have PS4 Pro and stuff. And I was like, man, this game
Yeah.
looks so smooth. Why does mine not look this smooth? And I realized, oh, right, PS4 Pro
Certain
sucks.
games it really matters. I think FPS, and if you're doing anything PvP,
Yeah,
frame rate really starts to be an issue. But for single player, you know,
that's true. Yeah,
not.
I guess it doesn't matter too much. It's still fun. I'm trying to convince myself that I don't need it. I'm perfectly happy with this. One thing that's
It's one of
really...
those.
No, go ahead.
No, you go, mate.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, one of the things I really like about this is, and it took me a while to notice, is that the entire game is, I don't want to say shot because it's not a movie, but like the camera never jumps to any spot. It's always one take, I guess you would call it. Like the camera always transitions.
Like it's on a crane kind of thing. It's
Yeah, and
like
it doesn't have
doesn't
cuts.
cut.
Like there's no cuts at all.
Wow, that's interesting.
Like it never switches perspective or anything on you like in an instant. It always transitions to where it has to go next. So like, like, I don't know, you encounter someone, the camera, you talk to a person, the camera like moves around you too while you're having conversation and stuff, and then he punches you and you fly super far away. It doesn't like cut to the other side of the wherever he hits you, and you watch yourself land. The camera kind of like runs and flies with you to over there, and then turns around to reveal like a different perspective and stuff. And sometimes it looks like someone is running, like a cameraman is actually like running with the camera after you and stuff. So there's a lot of cool camera play in there. It's really fancy.
It's an interesting choice.
Yeah,
I suppose it keeps you within the world. It creates a sense of immersion and being, and almost like a fly on the wall documentary or something, where you're just following the characters around, handheld camera style.
Yeah, I think that's what it is, and it's like it. Yeah, it helps being, like I said, immersed, because you don't have these cuts that just catch you by surprise, and it just feels like you are the one like observing it and running around, following them around, that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's really cool. I don't think I've seen that I can't think of another game that has ever done that, really.
No, and I can't think of many games that would do that and not kind of, have they not said anywhere, look at what we're doing? Usually if there's a really marked design decision like that, they'll be like, we've really gone hard on this.
Yeah.
But I've not heard anyone mention that.
To be fair, like I said, I try to stay away from reading up about it and stuff too. But I feel like this is sort of a thing that probably would be pretty everyone on the internet, mentioned somewhere. It's like, oh, this game has this really fancy camera and stuff. But yeah,
innovative.
Yes.
Innovative.
I mean,
camera angles.
Yeah. I mean,
you put that on the box. Innovative camera angles.
It's like the main
There
feature.
are no cuts in this game.
Yeah, it's just camera angles. There's nothing else in there. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I haven't finished the game. Maybe after 20 hours, they're like, oh, let's cut the camera or something. But I kind of doubt that that's going to happen.
Yeah, maybe it's just for the tutorial and you don't realize you're still in the tutorial.
Yes. But yeah, it's crazy, man. I don't know. It took me like 5 hours or so until I realized that. I was like, wait a minute, why? There's no because I was, I guess, waiting for like big cutscenes or something. But even, in these type of games, usually they have like huge creatures and stuff. And I already encountered like a giant creature, and I thought maybe in that case you might have to cut the camera or like zoom really far out or something to show it. But no, it's always like it just goes kind of like behind you, a bit closer to the floor, so you can see upwards more and stuff. Yeah, it's pretty impressive. I love like,
I do prefer that. Yeah, me too. And I prefer, everything being, I don't know if this is the right term, but kind of in engine within the game, within the flow of the gameplay. So if there's a cutscene, they are actually NPCs in the game and it's framed within the game. Don't cut to FMV kind of, because it's just jarring. For some reason, I'm thinking of a game called Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons when you describe it, which is not as probably not as cinematic as what you're talking about with the flying camera as you get knocked across the landscape. But that's a game that I don't. It does do cuts, but it pans around a lot, and the camera moves to show you different parts of the landscape and zooms in on important moments, and all very fluidly.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. It's cool how much like this kind of stuff affects games too, and how much kind of like movies and games now sort of merge together as well. You know, like you have real actors acting out as the characters now. You have really professional voice actors. You have all kinds of like techniques that you would use in movies implement into games now with the camera and sound and story and everything. It's quite impressive how they kind of merge these two now.
I was watching a documentary about the creation of Horizon Zero Dawn, another exclusive
Still need to play
game that made me want to buy. That's another game that makes me want to buy a console. But they were talking about like, you know, the design of the game and iterating on design and trying different ideas out, and then at some point they realized that they didn't have a story, so they brought in the dedicated story guy to really craft the world. And that leads to kind of the story having an influence on the design. So I think at that point, that's when the storytelling gets really good, because sometimes with games you get the sense that it's a good bunch of very talented game designers who've created a very fun game to play, and then they kind of come up with a story afterwards.
Yeah.
And in the case of Horizon Zero Dawn, when the story guy came in, he said, well, just as an example, it doesn't make sense that for the story we want to tell that the central character is riding around on a horse. We need to get rid of the horse and have her ride around on robots and things, because the story of the world is that there are no large creatures, mammals within the world. And that led to like a lot of backlash from the design team, because they're like, well, we spent all this time creating this great mounted horse combat. You can't take that away just because it doesn't fit with the story, but you need to, because buying into the world and being engrossed in the story is as important as kind of cool mounted combat sometimes.
For sure. That's interesting, yeah. I guess they would just reuse that for the robot horses then.
Very cool. Well, like we were saying, it's I think this is the first podcast we've done where we've really kind of like just rolled up and started rambling. But yeah, and in terms of game news, it was like nothing was really jumping across my radar. It was more YouTube stuff that came to mind, and I'm not sure it's really appropriate to mention it. There's a particular YouTuber that I followed for years and years called Total Biscuit, who's
I heard about that.
Yeah, and he's was diagnosed with cancer, and he's at the stage where he's had to stop doing YouTube and stop doing game critique because he just can't do it in the condition that he's in, and that's very sad. But as someone you don't know the person, so to comment on it is kind of, I don't know how that's relevant, but so it was more kind of YouTube stuff that I'd been noticing than.
Yeah, that's super sad. It happened like I read that, and then there was another one, Simone Geets or something. She makes like these shitty robots. I think that's what she calls them. Or crappy robots. She always builds like these robots that have like stupid uses, like a thing that puts makeup on your face, and it's all like weird and stuff. She was also diagnosed with like a brain tumor, and that happened on the same day. It's crazy, man.
YouTube is such a I know it's been going for like 15 years and people have been doing it for a long time now, but the point at which these people, and a lot of people on YouTube are like really kind of just average people. They're not movie stars and stuff, and but they live very publicly. And then the things that happen to everyone in life happen to people on YouTube, and it's kind of as people get older, you will see it more and more. And that's going to be kind of weird.
Yeah.
And that you see people very publicly either struggling with illness or dying. And these are people who, in the case of someone like Total Biscuit, I remember watching him on YouTube because for the longest time, as long as I can remember, game coverage on TV or whatever in the UK for sure is just shit.
Yeah.
It's really rubbish. And until YouTube came along, there was no kind of game coverage that I wanted to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And Total Biscuit was one of the first people that I kind of came across on YouTube that was doing interesting game commentary and also gameplay. It's like, oh, this guy, it's not some stupid presenter that the BBC has got to talk about games who doesn't really know what he's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
This guy really knows what he's talking about. So I guess for the first time, I feel like those people who watch soap operas and have their favourite stars, and they discover that one of them is terminally ill, it kind of feels relevant to you, even though you don't know these people.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, you just start to like certain people, and you watch them maybe your entire life or big parts of your life, and they're just like always there, and then suddenly it's like, well, nope, they're dying or something.
Very sad.
I don't know, man. It always feels so surreal that this is actually happening, this kind of stuff. And I remember when he posted about his cancer the first time, how he had this very funny post about how awkward it is to get that kind of exam done.
Yeah.
And it sounded like he was over it, and things were good and stuff. It's crazy that it's just like such a punch in the face when you're in that situation that someone tells you like, oh, the thing you had, well, it's back again, and this time it's gonna kill you.
Yeah, and like it's someone who I would look at and be impressed by their ability to kind of have their own voice and find a way to get their own voice out there and be very, sometimes quite confrontational about certain things, but being very sure of themselves. Like I have something to say, and this is how I'm going to say it, and no one's going to tell me I'm wrong, that kind of thing. And so you're impressed by that. It's just an example of someone who's really made something out of nothing, because no one was going around thinking, YouTube really needs a really intelligent game critic. Let's find one. He's just decided that's what I'm going to be.
Yeah.
And amazingly, there's an audience for it. And you think, wow, that's really inspiring, because it makes you think, well, there's someone who's done something they want to do. Maybe I can do it as well.
For sure, yeah. I don't often share the same opinion with him. He's done some things and said some things that I totally disagree with and stuff. But like, that is definitely something you can respect, the way he approaches these type of things. And
yeah, for sure. And it's just someone I watch, and like, you have to be in the mood to watch, because sometimes he comes across as very arrogant and too opinionated, and you think, oh, just stop. I'm not in the mood.
Maybe a little bit cynical.
Yeah, possibly. So I don't know if that's even something worth putting in the podcast, really, but
bring everyone down, make everyone sad.
Bring everyone down at the end.
How dying sucks and cancer sucks. Well, maybe we should talk about something more happy if there's nothing good.
Happy topics.
Well, one thing I was thinking of, since we always record at the beginning of a month, right? Why don't we just talk about what kind of games we were looking for in this month? Or do you think that's not interesting?
That is interesting. I mean, I've already mentioned State of Decay, which is a big one, and I think that's this month. I have a list of...
It is, on the 22nd.
So I mentioned State of Decay. Have you got something on your mind?
I do.
Go for it.
There's two other games I'm looking forward to, and ironically, they come out at the same day, on the same day. One is Dark Souls Remastered. Now, it's not a new game, but it's Dark Souls, and it's in, slightly fancier graphics, I guess. I don't even know if it improves by much. I just want a reason to play Dark Souls again.
Mm.
So I'm just gonna get that anyway. It comes out on the 25th of May.
Is that on PS4?
Well, it's I think it's also on. Isn't it also on PC? Let me see. Remastered. I probably should have looked up.
Can Dark Souls Remastered improve on the modded PC original?
Yeah, it's
So it
PC,
sounds like
PS4,
it's,
and
yeah.
Xbox One. So, it's like
Yeah.
updated engine or graphics or whatever, and apparently something's fixed. Kind of hope that. So, like, originally when you played Dark Souls on PC, for example, most people would use something called the DS Fix. It's like a little program or mod or whatever you want to call it that fixes just a bunch of things. There's one that fixes the connectivity stuff with the game so that it's easier to match up with other people if you want to play co-op or PvP, and just a bunch of bug fixes and that kind of stuff. So I'm hoping that some of these problems are fixed in that version as well.
Okay. So I suppose a follow-up question from someone who's never played Dark Souls. I kind of understand the fundamentals of it. Third-person combat, very challenging, a mysterious world that has lore in the background that you kind of pick up as time goes on. So in your words, what is it about Dark Souls that's made you play every single one of these from
Pretty much what you just mentioned. The combat is super fun and challenging. I love the way they tell stories, because I think that goes back to, like you said, you don't like reading in games and that kind of stuff. I don't like that either. I don't like super long cutscenes or conversations with people. In this game, you probably don't even pick up on the story or what the hell is even going on. Most of the stuff is explained through the item descriptions you get. So every item you find has 1-2 lines of text to it that explains like a tiny bit of something of the item or something else, mentions the person, mentions the place. And just by collecting these items and like just looking around in the world where you are, right? Like what could have happened to this place, like thinking about, theorizing a lot of stuff, you kind of maybe puzzle together some things. But even then, it just takes, at least me, it took like, I had to go on Reddit or whatever and just read about some story things, because it's just not super obvious right away. And the community always comes together and tries to puzzle together all these little story bits and try to make sense out of it. So I think that's super interesting, because it's very like mysterious, I guess, almost.
It's one of those games that is kind of there and looms very large. It's held in very high regard, and it's something that you kind of missed the boat on, and it's gone on now, and I feel like I missed it.
Oh no, you didn't. You can jump onto that boat.
Yeah, maybe the remaster might be a good time to do that.
Probably. Like, just revisit the first one, see how it started. I played the first one a week or so. Was it after or before the second one came out? So, like, I kind of jumped into it late-ish too. Like, I didn't, like, play it at release. I saw people play Dark Souls 2, and I was like, it's kind of interesting. Saw a bit of Dark Souls 1 before. Also looked interesting. The thing that made me not want to play it for the longest time is just because people always make it sound it's super frustrating and extremely difficult, like one of the toughest games. It's super frustrating, blah blah blah. And I can get really frustrated with certain games when they're just extremely difficult for just being difficult, like just stupid difficulty that just makes no sense. It's just like, oh, this game is so tough because everything kills you in one hit, and you have a card tied to your body so you can't evade anything or whatever. But for some reason, this game, I have never, at least in the first and the third one, never felt frustrated at all in any situation in this game.
That's good to hear.
Which surprised me personally, because I was expecting to be super frustrated. But it's just like, I always felt like every time I died to something, while yes, it's challenging and stuff, and it takes a while to get used to certain systems in the game, every time something happened to me and I died and stuff, it was because I did something stupid.
Right.
There rarely are situations where I felt the game felt like cheaty, like this guy suddenly had things he couldn't have had, or like the game, I got stuck somewhere or whatever and died to this because of that or something. So most of the time it seemed fair, and I was like, okay, I was an idiot. I rolled into his attack. I should have just done this and this, and next time I'll just do it better. And I guess that's why I never felt frustrated, and just like challenge myself to do better next time and try it again. The second one, I don't even want to talk about.
Why not?
I don't like the second one. I don't hate it, but it's a different game. It's also not made by the original team or the team that made the third one. It was made by like a secondary team,
Okay.
while the main team was working on Bloodborne for PS4. And you can tell, man, it's just they had those ideas of like, what would be really tough if we toss 50 billion enemies at you at once while you stand in fire and someone is, I don't know, throwing lightning at you at the same time. Like, it's just like dumb difficulty that doesn't have to be like this. It's not challenging. It's just like annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't like the second one. The second one is not a good game, in my opinion. Not a good Dark Souls game. It's still a good game, but it's not a good Dark Souls game. It doesn't represent a lot of what the original or the third one did. And then the third one is great. It's great. It's all good.
Well, that's one to look forward to.
Yeah.
Did you say you got another one?
Yes. It comes out on the same day, and that is Detroit Become Human on the PS4.
Oh, Detroit.
Yes. It's.
And is that an exclusive, Detroit?
I think it is. Yes, it is. But it's made by Quantic Dream and David Cage. They have made like that Fahrenheit game, Heavy Rain, and Beyond Two Souls.
Mm-hmm.
And while there are a lot of people who make fun about these games, I really like them.
No, I can see that. And this looks like kind of all those games, it's kind of a larger, seems like just more, but bigger and more,
right.
Just fleshed out.
More of the same, but bigger maybe, more fleshed out on a PS4.
I like the core idea of it, as I understand it, is that it's androids or cyborgs.
Androids, yeah.
It's about them becoming sentient or having rights.
Yeah.
The same rights as humans.
It's like an android uprising.
Yeah.
And, the whole gimmick of their type of games is always that you have several decisions you can make, and that influences the story and how things play out in the end.
Yes. And always with that kind of game, my central question is, how much can I really affect the changes?
Yeah.
How much does it, because the tree that you have in your mind, you start off at a specific point, and then it branches off, wider. And then towards the end, it all comes together again. And how many endings are there at the end, and how much do things really change?
Yeah.
And, I think that's for that type of game. That's like the deciding factor for me. I like the ending to be significantly different based on choices, rather than you can make a load of different choices, but you end up in pretty much the same place at the end.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, it's probably mostly just changes in between the start and the end, where like you branch off, and then maybe somehow closer to the end you just get back into the same path.
Yeah.
In Beyond Two Souls, the last one they released, there were they said 24 endings, but really it's like 8 actual like different endings, and then there's like 16 variations of these endings. So there are different ones. They aren't like extremely different from what I've seen. Like once I finished that game, I just watched all the other ones online, because it's not really a type of game that you kind of want to replay, I guess. Although I really always wanted to replay that game to make videos out of it, but I guess it just wouldn't like be the same as the first time playing through it, because I already know all the story and stuff behind it. But it's somewhat different. But yeah, I guess it would be nice if it was completely different. At the same time, I'm also worried that I kind of want to get a good-ish ending, and if I did something so different that I end up in a really bad spot, like maybe the game ended for me like 5 hours earlier than it could have ended or something, if you did everything right, then I'm like forced to replay it and make different type of decisions to try to get to this other ending, which is not something I would probably want to do personally. Like, I don't replay games often, so I'm kind of glad that most of these endings are in the same kind of area, but slightly a little bit different. Just I guess a little bit altered to what you've done throughout the game. And then just have most of the big decisions and branches in the center of the game. So you get a different path of something, but you still somehow end up in a similar spot at the end. I think I kind of like that more.
And it's not feasible to do,
Oh yeah,
the amount, it's exponential. The amount of, as soon as you go down the path of creating all these multitude of endings and different options.
Yeah.
It's impossible to actually get to the end of a game, I imagine, in the creation of the game, and the budget would be insane. So
it would, yeah. I mean, this game has been in the making for a long, long, long time.
And I wonder how much of it is to do with someone coming to a game who is a storyteller, and is it David Cage?
Yeah, David Cage.
Is it David Cage? He seems to be someone who wants to tell a story, and he has a message that he wants to get across, and so quite apart from budget and things, any kind of ending that goes too far away from the story he wants to tell is kind of not the story he wants to tell.
True, that makes sense.
It's a creative decision, isn't it? To we need to bring people back to this kind of narrow range of things because that's the story. And it's a story-based game. So I can see it kind of from a corporate kind of business angle. Don't go too wide, but also creatively. Yeah. You have a vision to tell a story.
Yeah, makes sense. Because he probably has like a message that he maybe wants to tell at the end of the entire story. And if you strafe off too far, then it just doesn't come across. And I mean, a lot of people make fun about his stories and his games, and that they can be a little bit... I don't know, maybe over the top, or maybe I don't know what the word is, but I don't know. I always enjoyed it, man. I just had a lot of fun with, especially with Beyond Two Souls. I thought the story was amazing. The characters were amazing. I may have cried a few times, but I'm not going to admit to that ever. But it was good, man. And I was sad I didn't record it, actually. That was one of those games I played on my own. And I kind of regret having done that, because I just feel like it would have been nice to share that with people and just have a conversation about these type of things. But
yeah. No, I totally get why people play those kinds of games. And I occasionally... I'm in the mood for them, just very structured, story-based games. I played through Gone Home.
Yeah. You mentioned last time that you started playing these simulation walking simulators.
Gone Home, Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons, other stuff as well. I have to bring up my notes, but more directed stories that are kind of just tell a satisfying narrative, the end is the end. So I'm more open to them than I used to be. Again, going back to the dialogue thing, that's not why I play games. I would have at one time looked at this type of game and thought, well, that's basically an interactive storybook, the kind of thing where you have multiple choices, but kind of you're on this fake kind of they're fake choices. It might as well be a novel kind of thing, but I don't think that anymore. I think it is interactive. It's just a different kind of way of enjoying a game, and I guess I am less opinionated about that kind of thing, and my I think people play games for all kinds of different reasons and all kinds of different experiences, and this is one of them.
Yeah, totally. And it's silly how people sometimes judge you for those type of reasons, I suppose. It's like, why would you play this type of game? It's not even fun. It's like, well, I'm spending my free time playing this game and enjoying it. How can you say it's not fun when I'm, I don't know. It's just a personal thing, right?
Well, unless it's Madden.
Unless it's Madden or any other sports game.
That's just objectively, you're wrong. Why are you playing that game?
Yeah, it's just a waste of time and it's boring.
No, I totally get it. I played John Madden on the Mega
I
Drive.
played like Formula One games. Yeah.
I played flipping, what was it? There was an ice hockey game that I was really into for some reason. No, that's cool. I haven't got anything from my end. So, do you think you will play
Other than State of Decay.
State of Decay? And on my list, they're all things that are a little bit further out, but might be worth mentioning them.
You should save them for June.
No, they're further out than that, and some of them are a little bit of a punchline for a joke nowadays, like kind of connected to Beyond Human in that it's a dark future. Cyberpunk is when are we going to find out when that game is coming out?
I need it.
Cyberpunk.
I don't know how often I can mention that Cyberpunk is my favorite genre, but I need this game.
So I am hoping that at E3 we get some news about that game.
I didn't even think about that, dude. And now I'm like all excited for E3. You just made me all excited.
Hopefully. There's that, and also whatever this game is from Bethesda, Starfield, something space based.
Starfield? Oh yeah. The Fallout in a future space kind of thing.
Well, I mean, it's an original. They've said that.
I don't mean it's the Fallout world. I'm just saying like that type of game, like an open world.
Yeah, what the kind of Bethesda is known for, but it's an original IP, something in space, and the working title, whether it's the final title or not, is Starfield, and that's another potential thing that we might get some news of this year, because they have been teasing in the last couple of E3s, like before the Elder Scrolls 6, we've got some other games and some big games that are original IPs, and it looks like Starfield was probably what they were alluding to, or one of them. Mm-hmm. So I'm very interested in that. I like that Bethesda style of game, and I like the idea of it being in space. So those are the two that are at the top of my list to look forward to. Yeah. But they won't be coming out this year even. We just might get news about them.
Yeah. Cyberpunk for sure won't.
No.
But yeah, that's something like Cyberpunk games I always want more of. I always wanted a Fallout-like game in space. And I also always want a Dark Souls-like game in space or in the future or somewhere.
Well, that'd be interesting. Well, there wasn't there one that was very Dark Soulsy?
Yeah,
where you wear some kind of mech suit?
Yeah, what's it called? In oh my god, Insurgents? No,
I'm just going to type Dark Souls in space. Dark Souls in space, Hellpoint.
But the
Surge.
The Surge, yes. But I want the Dark Souls people to make a Dark Souls game in space, because everyone who copies the Dark Souls title just doesn't do it right. They didn't do it right. What was that other game called? There's another one. I can't think about this, even though I played some of it. I don't know. There's another like Dark Souls type game that came out not a couple of years ago. It just doesn't have the same feel to it. It's just not the same.
You mean the way it controls or the atmosphere?
Everything. No, it's just like I think it's the same issue with why Dark Souls 2 just wasn't that good. It's not the same team. There's something about the team, or maybe it's just Miyazaki's vision or something that is different from what the other people do. Usually these type of games, they feel unfair. The enemies feel like bullet sponges, or they just kill you instantly, or they just throw a horde of enemies at you. You always get put into unfair situations. The level design isn't as good. Like there's all these like little things that just come out and or play into it and just don't make it feel the same. I just want Dark Souls. I don't want to rip off. I just want them to make it, you know?
Yeah, I know what you mean. There's something about like this ongoing debate about games and are they art? Are they an art form on the level of literature and movies totally. And stuff?
But I might be biased.
I think you can tell if you're playing a game that is a true work of art.
Yeah.
It just everything about it just it feels the way a great painting makes you feel or a movie makes you feel. It's just everything feels right, and you pick up a game that is kind of a cheap knockoff of that thing, and you know straight away.
Lords of the Fallen.
So I think,
that's the one I was thinking of. Okay.
What's it called?
Lords of the Fallen. That was another like Dark Souls-like game I played for a bit, but it's just it's not the same.
Geez, this guy just looks like Kratos. Is it Kratos from
God of War?
God of War.
Oh, he does. Yeah, I never noticed. Well, yeah, the new Kratos, the
older version,
right? Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, like the oldest in like the PS1, was it PS2 or PS1? The first one was probably PS1, get bad, right?
The original Dark Souls.
No, the original
not Dark Souls. God of War.
What was it? PS2.
I'm not even sure.
I'm googling PS2. Never mind. It wasn't quite as old.
I played some PS1 games the other day. Stuff that I have very, very fond memories of.
What did you play?
Oh God. I played Twisted Metal.
Ooh, okay, it's a good one.
Which is car combat.
Yeah.
Driving around, shooting missiles. It's awful. It's really hard to kind of just like, you have this image in your head of like, it's a 3D arena and everything makes sense. It's fine. And then you fire it up and it's like, my God, this is terrible. It's actually harder to accept than some older games.
Yeah.
Like you play the original Mario. It's so simple and elegant, but those early 3D graphics on the PS1, they are really hard to deal with now.
Yeah, we're so used to this fancy stuff. This is
it's just incredibly like low poly count kind of the cars merge with the background. It's so low frame rate. It's like, wow. How did I play this and find it fun?
Well, that's the best we had back then. And it looked amazing back then to us. It's weird.
Have you ever played the original GTA 3?
Probably.
In recent years.
Oh, not recently, no.
You can't look up.
Really?
I'll just leave that. Just leave that hanging. Drop the mic. You can't look up.
Okay.
I don't think I'm pretty sure you can't look up.
Could be right. You just look left and right, huh?
I think, unless the emulator I was using.
For some reason, that does sound familiar. I don't know if it's this game though, but like I can feel right now how I'm trying to pull the camera up and down on a controller, and it just doesn't go up and down. Like I definitely played these type of games.
It's stuff like that you forget have changed, like Doom, like the original Doom. You can't you can't look around in Doom, like look up and down.
Well, the impressive thing about Doom back then was that it's not a
3D game, is it?
Was it in Doom or was it Wolfenstein? Yeah, it's not a 3D game. It's like a simulated 2D, like 3D in a 2D space, which is crazy, man.
Yeah, I don't know how we got onto that.
I'm just rambling. This is like, you mentioned PS1. This is like one PS1 game I keep thinking of that I love to play as a kid. It's called Auto Destruct. I sometimes want to like just download an emulator and play it again, but I probably wouldn't like it nowadays. And I don't want to ruin this image of this game just being amazing.
It looks okay. It looks cleaner than Twisted Metal anyway.
Yeah.
There was another game that in the UK it came bundled with the original PS1, which was it was just a top-down shooter, kind of clone, 3D, Loaded it was called. You were all kind of patients they were all insane characters. Like one had a straitjacket on, one was a guy dressed as a baby with they were all like slightly twisted and weird. I think it was called Loaded.
Yeah, I'm looking it up. It looks like a Loaded.
That was a launch title that I got with the original.
Damn, that reminds me of this fighting game for PS1 that's like super brutal and bloody. Was it Thrill Kill or something? Let me see. Yes, Thrill Kill. That game was...
I never played that. But the Final Fantasy Tactics was my jam on PS1 for a long while there. I loved that game so much. I had to get it hacked so I could use an American copy.
Oh, yeah. I feel like everyone had a hacked PS1 back then and PS2. It's just
But the
like
weird thing
people
was,
did.
it wasn't some complicated like chip inside or some rewiring. It was just a kind of a spring that would allow you to have the case open but hold the kind of button
Oh, really?
down at the same time, and you just swap the discs in a certain way. It was really kind of crude and mechanical the way it did it. Some kind of complicated rewiring job.
I think for my PS2, I remember like convincing my dad to drive to this like dude who builds in these like chips into your PS2. They were like really fancy chips, so you could apply anything and very easily, and that was so amazing back then.
I remember going to like I heard a rumor that like you could get it done at this shop. So the local computer shop
Yeah.
boutique with all the geeky stuff that where I got my stupid cloth poster of Chun-Li that I hung up in my bedroom and thought it was really cool. It made me look really lame. I didn't realize you bring any girls round to your room and you've got a big cloth poster of Chun-Li from Street Fighter on your wall. It's not going to work. It's
Well,
not.
if she likes it too, it will work. Just gotta find the
Anyway,
right girl.
I went in and like really, I went up to the counter and like really shiftily said, sort of, I hear you will be able to help me with my PlayStation
Some
to
sort of,
play
like, secret
other
code.
games. And the guy kind of looked at me like, don't know what you're talking about. What are you talking about? And I went away like feeling really stupid and then like 6 months later, when I'd grown up a little bit, because you grow up a little bit
Just
in
a tiny
6 months
bit.
when you're a kid, I just went in and said, I don't know how to play all these foreign games. Can you tell me? Is there a way for me to play them? So I acted sort of really naive, like I didn't know anything about it, and he slipped me a little piece of paper with a number on to ring. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. So sometimes acting like you know less can actually get people to help you.
Yeah.
Whereas when I went in pretending that I was really cool and knew something, he didn't want to help me. I just remember that instance as some kind of weird life lesson about how to approach people sometimes.
So the lesson here is just act stupid all the time.
Yeah, well, weirdly, yeah, just act like you know nothing and people will maybe help you out. But don't act like a cocky little shit, because then they won't want to.
Yeah. Was it the same guy though? Or was it like a different guy?
I can't remember. It's like 25 years ago.
Just a little while ago.
I think it might have been the same guy, actually. And I that jogs a memory. I think I had to risk that he wouldn't remember me.
Yeah.
That kind of does ring a bell, actually.
That's hilarious. Well,
we've been talking for 2 hours.
yeah.
Maybe we should call it a day.
Probably
At least
should.
stop recording, anyway.
Yeah.
All right. I'll say goodbye to people who are listening. Bye, people.
Goodbye, people who were listening. Thank you for listening. And hope you'll be listening again next time.
All right, so we won't put this at the beginning because of spoilers. If you don't want to be spoiled for Avengers Infinity Wars, stop listening.
Yes. Okay, let's just put it at the end, I guess.
All right, so Miss Marvel, Captain Marvel, is hinted at the end of the Avengers.
Okay.
In the post-credits scene where I can't remember the name of the agent, but one of the agents, she's been in a few of the Marvel movies, and Nick Fury, they turn into dust, and then it pans down to see who Nick was texting at the time that he turned into dust.
Oh, yeah.
And a symbol appears, and that's the symbol of Captain Marvel.
I was wondering what that symbol is. Yeah, Oh,
And
interesting.
then we kind of knew that movie was coming up, but we didn't know the context it was going to occur in. You know, we didn't know what was going to happen at the end of Infinity Gem fight. So
Oh, I didn't even know there was going to be a movie about her.
yeah.
That's awesome.
But what did you think of Infinity War? Did you enjoy it?
I did enjoy it. Yeah, I liked it a lot. So I don't know. I'm pretty. So the Marvel movies for me are always just like, yeah, whatever. It's like pretty to look at. There's nothing like special about it or something really to
Yeah.
me. But no, I like this one. I liked how everything kind of came together, and I was worried it would be super confusing or all over the place. But I think they actually did a pretty good job of how they put them all together. I think it helped that they kind of started out with having smaller groups here and there in different places, and cover them for a few minutes and then switch to the other group instead of having like all of them in one place or something right away or something. So I think it was pretty cool. The ending was definitely surprising. I was like, okay, that's something different.
Yeah, I mean, everyone that I've heard say, has commented on how sort of dark the ending was and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe there's a kind of a disconnect between some of the light-hearted moments and the down ending and some of the gravity of the situation that they're in, this world-ending situation. And then you have all the characters making little quips, and particularly the Guardians of the Galaxy have this funny vibe going on.
Yeah, yeah.
But I have to say, I could see on the surface how this is really downbeat. Everyone's turning into dust. Half the population of the universe is turning into dust. But I didn't feel like depressed or anything. I feel it's like still entertaining in a way. Just the idea of the situation. I didn't feel like my heart was wrenched from my chest because all these people are dying, because I don't know, maybe it's over familiarity with the genre and how these things happen, but I kind of felt
that
like
they're not going to be gone forever, right? Like, it's just like...
Yeah, and I mean, not all of them for sure, and 5 minutes before that, Thanos reverses time.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it's like... Yeah, okay, I understand the gravitas of this situation, but nothing seems really final in this particular case, because you can pretty much do anything you want.
Yeah.
And people can always come back. So you don't actually know if people are dead when they die.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you don't know whether to actually care, because they're probably going to bring them back anyway. They're not going to have a movie like Black Panther that's done this amazing box office and then kill the character in the next movie.
Well, it would be smart.
We know for certain
financially
that's not going to happen.
Yeah, but like financially it would be smart, because the next movie they don't have to hire all these very expensive actors, It's just going to be all the B-movie stars that survived or something.
Yeah, well, someone was saying that one of the reasons is they want to get rid of Robert Downey Jr. because his, something absurd, like a quarter of the budget for the movies is his salary.
But he stuck around, though.
So I don't know.
That makes no sense then.
No, but someone did explain it to me, and I thought, that's kind of interesting. If you look at the ones that survive, as opposed to the ones that died, so you've got Iron Man, Thor, Hulk, Black Widow survived. Basically, all the ones that it started with. The original Avengers movie are the ones that are still around. So in the next movie, it will be those original characters sorting things out, in a sense, and the next movie will be the departure for those original characters. Somehow those original core group will bring back a load of these other ones, but they'll move on. Whether they'll die or whether they'll just be written out of the ongoing story, whatever. But the next one will kind of be wrapping up this original Avengers arc from the first Avengers movie to this next one coming up. So that kind of rang true to me. I didn't realize, they're all the original ones in the original Avengers movie that survive.
Interesting. And then some side characters, I guess, like Nebula.
Yeah, a couple of side ones.
Interesting. I'm actually curious, like, if they gonna keep going with this kind of stuff after the final Avengers. Probably just because they make so much money. But well, and there's like a Black Widow movie planned.
I hope
as
they do
well.
that, because it seems like a huge oversight. She's been in it from the very early days, and the only one who hasn't had.
Well,
The only
Hawkeye
major
didn't.
character. But Hawkeye. Black Widow's actually good. Hawkeye is just like so bland.
Yeah,
What would his movie be?
I don't
Just
know,
an archery competition.
training. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of weird that they didn't include him in this one. And I'm sad Ant-Man didn't show up, but maybe next one.
I wonder if they'll, because the next movie is the Ant-Man movie, I wonder if they'll explain why he wasn't there, what was happening with him.
Well, the next one is Deadpool, right?
Yeah, but that's Sony, isn't it? That's not actually in the Marvel continuity,
Oh, that would explain
strictly speaking.
why he's not there.
I think they allude to Avengers and stuff, but that's a Sony movie.
Yeah, I can see that. Interesting.
This is a very geeky conversation.
It's awesome, though. I love these conversations.